Shri Sairam. We start today's session with three Omkars. Om Shri Sairam. Loving pranams at Bhagwan's lotus feet. Respected elders, brothers and sisters, Sairam to all of you. Welcome to the 33rd online Samarpan sessions organized by Sai students from Mumbai. We have been blessed to have Brother Siddhartha Raju with us today. A brief introduction to Brother Siddhartha. Dr. Siddhartha Raju hails from Chennai and currently resides in Prashant Nilayam. After completing his bachelor's in English literature, he joined the Sri Satya Sai Institute of Higher Learning for his MBA degree, which he completed in 2009. Thereafter, Swami instructed him to do his master's in English, followed by PhD in English literature. So, as per the divine command, Brother Siddhartha pursued and completed his MA degree in English from the Loyola College, Chennai. Following this, he joined the Department of English at Prashantinilayam campus of Sri Satya Sai Institute of High Learning in 2011 as lecturer and parallelly pursued his doctorate degree. Brother Siddhartha received his PhD in English literature in 2019. Brother Siddhartha is a very popular teacher amongst his students. Apart from the subjects he teaches, he guides and mentors many of them in personality development. Before he came to Prashantinilayam, Brother Siddhartha had been a member of the Sundaram Bhajan group and had the privilege of performing in front of Swami at Kodaikanal and at Prashantinilayam. He has been a part of the Prashanti Mandir Bhajan group for over 10 years and has also sung in the Nada Brahmam series of Sai Bhajans. He is an accomplished singer and has been part of several music programs in the immediate divine presence. As part of the Bhajan group, he also plays the harmonium for bhajans and other music programs. He has had the privilege of traveling with Swami to Kodaikanal, and also he is a multi-talented personality. He is an excellent actor and an orator. His skill and his stints with stage acting at Chennai has enabled him to direct several dramas performed by the students at Prashantinilayam, such as the Convocation drama and Sports Meet drama, which have been presented in the Divine Presence. Over the years, Brother Siddhartha has conducted several bhajan workshops across USA, Australia, Singapore, and Indonesia. Sai bhajans are his first love, which brought him to his beloved Swami and keeps him connected to him. We hear him every day through the bhajans that he sings in Mandir. It's a rare privilege that we get to hear his thoughts. Brother Siddhartha, over to you.
चरण कमल पर शीश नमाऊं, अर्पण करूं तुझे नमस्कार, भक्ति भाव के ये स्वर माना, बाबा स्वीकार कर लेना, बाबा स्वीकार. Offering my most loving salutations at the lotus feet of my beloved Master. A very warm Sairam to all the elders, brothers and sisters. Thank you, Brother Jaishankar, for that detailed introduction. As I was listening to you, it almost made me wonder if I have anything left to say at all, because you've pretty much covered whatever I wanted to share this evening. But nevertheless, I'm blessed with this opportunity to address everybody this evening. And over the next 60 to 70 minutes, I'll like to share my life, my journey with Bhagwan. Now, my three most favorite epithets for the Lord are is something that I have read in one of Professor Kasturi's speeches. And he calls the Lord as tremendous, mysterious, and fascinating. And these are my favorite epithets for him, because when you hear any Leela of Swami, it leaves you thinking thus. If not all three, it definitely strikes you with one of these three. Because every act of his is tremendous, and everything that he does is so mysterious. And despite it being mysterious, it still leaves us fascinated. For example, let's take his timing. I'm sure every one of us experience this ever so often. Something out of the blue happens, what we would like to call a coincidence or a coincidence. The sheer timing at which it happens, right? It doesn't happen a second too early, it doesn't happen a second too late. It happens exactly when it was meant to happen, and when it does, it just leaves us stumped. His timing, for instance, like I said, is tremendous. It is so mysterious and it is so fascinating. Of course, we can definitely talk about his love and the power of his love, the kind of impact that his love has had on so many of us, me included. His love is so tremendous, it is so mysterious, and it is so fascinating. One of our professors at the university, he recalls how Bhagwan once said that the nature of Avatar's love is selflessness, it is changelessness, and it is fearlessness. Now, I'm just going to delve a little bit deeper into those three aspects, because this is something that Swami himself has said about his love. Selflessness. Any act of his, every act of his, there is no selfish motive. It is only for the benefit of the others. It is so selfless in nature. And it is changeless. His love is changeless, such that it doesn't matter when you had an opportunity to visit, or when he spoke to you, or how much time had lapsed between one interaction and the other, you still felt that same love, and you continue to feel that same love. You know it is a sign of Bhagwan. It doesn't leave you in any doubt at all, isn't it? So the changelessness is another aspect of the nature of the Avatar's love. And the third being fearlessness. Fearlessness because when through his love, or because of his love for us, he doesn't hesitate to do any act, because whatever he does it for our own good, for our own growth, isn't it? And because of that, he is fearless when he expresses himself, when he rebukes us. When Bhagwan would not talk to us on days on end, we know that he is intentionally avoiding us, that he is looking through us, and all of that. He doesn't fear that there would be a misunderstanding. He doesn't fear that you would turn away from him, right? He knows that even that act, out of his love for us, to turn us towards him, he doesn't fear any repercussions from the point of view of the relationship between the guru and the disciple, or God and devotee. So that is the other aspect, the nature of Avatar's love. That is his selflessness, changelessness, and fearlessness. Now, moving ahead to talk about what I'm going to try to do over the next 60 minutes. I'm going to try and talk about three gifts that I have received from him. Now, about these three gifts, point number one, I can't recall really when I received it exactly. It just happened in this brief journey that I have had with Bhagwan. Second, I don't know what I did to deserve these gifts. Of my own volition, I don't think I have done any great sadhana or practice or maintained any austerities that made me eligible for these gifts. And maybe that's why, point three, I didn't know its value when I got it because it just landed, it is just bestowed upon me as a gift. I didn't know its value at the time at which I received it. Now, here is something interesting. I'm very sure that these three gifts that I'm going to talk about, I'm very sure that each one of us had received these gifts. And that's why my story is your story. And that's the universal nature of His love. So let's go to the first gift that I received. The first gift that I think I received from Bhagwan is the gift of faith. The gift of faith is such a crucial gift because the nature of faith is binary. It is either there or it is not there. Right? And honestly, the faith that we have in Bhagwan, the kind of devotion that we have in our relationship with Swami, I think that makes all the difference in our life, isn't it? Because he becomes the anchor, he becomes the rudder of our life, of our journey. He knows when we need to break, he knows in which direction he needs to take our lives, and so on. So, the gift of faith is something that I think all of us have received, and I think it is a very, very precious gift that Swami has given us. Because when you look at the number of people whom we know in our own lives who have not been bestowed with that gift, who know Swami, they may know Swami because they know us, but they have not been lucky enough to be called to this form of the Lord. So, the gift of faith, that is the first thing that I would like to talk about. Speaking about how this gift probably lands up, or even after it has been handed to us, how every now and then we have a scenario or a situation in our life where that particular faith is tested, or we get to know that that faith exists. I think very often there is a desire, or there is a test, or there is a shake-up that happens, scenarios which either bring about a desire in us, scenarios which test us or shake us up, and then there is an answer. And that answer, in whatever different ways it happens in our respective lives, the answer, the end result of the answer, if we look back, we will realize that the answer came because we had faith. Now, let me narrate an incident, or before I go there. Now, in my own journey with Bhagwan, the reason why I said I can't recall when exactly I received this gift, or what I did to deserve this gift, or that I didn't know the value. I say this because my mother just pointed to the photo of Bhagwan, and she just said, "This is Swami, this is God." And in all my childlike innocence, I simply bought it. I simply believed whatever she had to say, because there's very little reason for me to doubt why my mother would say something that wasn't true. So it was as simple as that for me in terms of accepting Swami as the avatar. The books that I read all said the same thing. Whatever books I would read when I was in school, all spoke about, people spoke about their experiences with Bhagwan, in which they are again talking the same thing. The end result is they're all saying the same thing. So I found nothing to the contrary at that point of time in my life to doubt that. But there were these few moments, these few incidents that only made me, which only reaffirmed the fact that my mother was right. Now, one of those incidents involves my mother herself. Now, this happened in the year 97 or 98. And one evening, my mother was at her office. My mother runs her own business. And one evening, she's not somebody who usually visits the pantry. She doesn't take tea, coffee at work. For some reason, she found herself walking towards the far end of the office floor where the pantry was located. She goes there, and adjacent to the pantry is the UPS room. And even as she approached there, she smelt like there was something burning. And right in front of her eyes, there were sparks, and the UPS room caught fire. Before she could call people to come and try to help in putting out the fire had started to spread. And because of the false roofing, there was a lot of thick smoke, thick black smoke, and the fire is now engulfing the office. Now, my mother says that, and I say this is exactly how she reported it to me. When she came back home, she said she went straight to her cabin. She opened her drawer, she picked up Swami's picture, and she said, I don't know why you're doing this, but you have to help me deal with this situation. And she says she felt a charge of sorts fill her whole being from the picture. And she says, from that moment onwards, I was behaving like I was possessed. I was behaving like I was a professional firefighter. And she says she went about giving instructions: first evacuate the employees, remove all the systems, all the combustible material had to be moved away. She got somebody to dial the fire engine. And I think it was one of the most major fire incidents on an arterial road in Chennai. I think about a dozen fire engines had to come. And in no time, the whole office was engulfed either in smoke or was being burnt down. And her company is just literally going up in flames right in front of her own eyes. The fire engines came, they put out the fire, all of it happened. She came back home quite late that night and she narrated the ordeal to us. Now, the next day, uh, because it was a major fire, the DGP of fire stations had to visit himself as part of the insurance claim. And he asks, where did you spot this? Where did this start? And they take him to that far corner of the office where the UPS room was, the server room was. And he looks around and he asks my mother, so who put this out? Who put this out? And she says, you all did it. The fire engines came and put it out. No, he said, no, who put it out here? She says, nobody put it out there. And then he shows her a part of the wiring which probably had burnt. So typically in any wire, I'm just going to demonstrate, any wire, if you set fire to it, it burns at both ends, isn't it? Now, very strangely, at this particular wire, the burning happened only in one direction. And it was almost as if somebody had held it down and not prevented it from going in the other direction. And if it had gone in the other direction, that meant it would have covered the external of the building as well. And it could have spread to the other floors as well. Obviously, there was no doubt in thinking who held it down. And she broke down when she saw that it was there in front of her eyes that somebody had just held the wire down and prevented it from going in another direction. It defied all logic, but that's precisely where faith begins, right? Where logic ends, faith begins. So the gift of faith that Swami gave us is something that I think we need to think about, because I'm sure each of us have umpteen moments where our faith has been tested, our faith has been renewed, or that first moment when that faith was gifted itself. Now, talking about the gift of faith in him, I'm going to recall an incident that I have shared before, but I shall, please indulge me if I share it one more time, because I think it's one of these moments that have had a tremendous impact on me personally. So this happened in the year 2007, and we were part of a sports meet drama that was to be presented on January 15th. And I'm sure those of you who have been part of any of the presentations that have come from Mumbai, you know how chaotic and how coordinated, in single quotes, the whole lead up to the program is, isn't it? So, and because Prashanthi Nilayam typically hosts the sports meet, the maintenance team of the Prashanthi Nilayam campus is in charge of setting up the whole stadium, the speakers and all of that. Typically, the sets work and all of that related, drama-related work starts only after 11th of Jan, between 12th, 13th and 14th. And that is why typically the other campuses are given their slots. So Prashanthi Nilayam has about 3 days of gap, and it's hardly a gap. Actually, work starts only on 12th, 13th and 14th. 15th is when we put up the drama. So this particular year, on the 11th of Jan, we were at the stadium. The evening program had concluded. Swami had taken Aarti. Swami came down to his car. He came down the lift to his car, and he summoned Professor Anil Kumar. And he went up to Swami, and Swami spoke something. And we all know how animated Anil Kumar sir is. However far you are, you can still make out that there's something big. The enormity of the situation is seen in his body language itself. And then sir went up to the podium, and sir made an announcement. The announcement was, sir said, Swami has said that tomorrow evening there is going to be a drama by the Prashantinilayam students of the university, Prashantinilayam campus of the university. And then the other instructions that Swami had given him were all coming out one by one like thunderbolts. So this itself was a knockout, right? We hadn't yet recovered from this punch, and Swami hadn't even gotten started. Swami says that ilanti setsu, ilanti costumes, ilanti dialogues can never see before, never seen. So Swami has said that these kind of dialogues, these kind of sets and costumes have never before been seen, which is true because there are no costumes, there are no sets, nothing is ready. So that kind of a costume didn't exist before, that kind of a set didn't exist before. And then he gave the last line. He said, Swami says, if you miss tomorrow's drama, you have missed something in life. Now, this is a build-up that has been given for drama, which doesn't exist. It literally has to still get fine-tuned. It's a far 3 days and 3 nights is like a year in our institute by our institute standards. You can do anything in 3 days and 3 nights. So we are thinking, and we don't have those 3 days and 3 nights now. Now we have one night. Right? Tomorrow is the drama. And we were shaken up, literally developed cold feet. Like, how on earth are we going to do this tomorrow? How is it possible? It's just not possible, right? So we went back to the hostel, and the drama group, we could clearly make out. There were one stunned lot of boys standing in one corner in the hostel quadrangle, wondering, what's going on? How tomorrow evening, how? And then our teacher in charge, Dr. Sainath sir, he came up, he called all of us, and he said, the time is 6:30. Be the first to finish your dinner and come to auditorium for practice. Don't waste your time thinking about anything else. So we're thinking, okay, he's very cool, but what is going on? Like, how does he think it's possible? He said, don't worry, that's not for you to think. Your job is to practice. See, we hadn't even got our lip sync right because some of our drama boys are in the sports meet, on-field events. They're doing something somewhere or the other. So many of them have not even got their lip sync right. So we obeyed sir. We had our dinner. And on the way out of hostel for practice, the whole hostel was queuing up. All the students, imagine for the majority of the students who are part of the on-field events, 11th evening that's it. They can go and crash. They can sleep non-stop for 12 hours at least, because that you've been exhausted after weeks of practice. The whole hostel was only heading towards the maintenance and the costumes and the card room, asking, is there anything for us to do? Because we know you guys can't pull this off in one night. The numbers a large number is the only thing that can save you. Can we help? So that is very touching. We saw, because everybody felt that this is a time to contribute to the whole thing. So we reached the auditorium for practice, and we were still not convinced. We really had a lot of self-doubt whether we would be able to do. And this is where having a teacher with the kind of experience with Bhagwan, makes such a big, gives such a big lift and boost. So sir came to us and he narrated an incident where one day he was doing duty at Purna Chandra when Swami was leaving for darshan, and Swami just looked at him and said, come there and give a speech. And Swami left for darshan. And he has narrated it on different occasions. I'm sure some of you have heard it, right? So I'll quickly cut to the chase. So he runs and he reaches there and huffs and puffs, and Swami says, speak. And he speaks and he said, I was not satisfied with my own talk. So that evening when Swami came back to the residence, he confessed to Swami that, Swami, I didn't do well. If I had more time, I would have done better. And he says, Swami told him, I won't give you a test that is beyond your capability. I know how much you're capable, and only based on that, I'm giving you a test. So actually, if you see, no test of Bhagwan is, he's given the answer paper also. It's there somewhere within. We just have to find the answer to the situation. So he said this, and he said, if Swami has announced that tomorrow evening the drama will happen, he has already seen the drama happen. So why are we even worried about it? Why should you or me take it upon ourselves that the set is not ready, the costume is not ready? It is ready. He has seen it. And that is why he has made such an announcement. So you guys have to work through the night, give it your best. We leave it in his hands after that. So we didn't see anything close to our room for the next 14 hours. We were only in the auditorium, spending the whole night practicing to whatever best we could. But definitely that point that he made, it has had such a big impact on me, and why I will talk about it shortly after. So the next day, the drama did happen. And I have narrated this incident also before, but this is the part which I like the most. It is a penultimate scene, is a massive structure for Ramar Pattabhishekam. And the backdrop had about few hundred stars made of thermocol stuck across the whole backdrop. And the scene before the Pattabhishekam was the scene where I was a part. I was a narrator in the drama. So I was supposed to enter and give the lead up to the few dialogues, lead up to the final scene and exit. So I'm waiting for my scene. And so I'm waiting in the wings. And this sets boy is sitting and sticking those thermocol pieces. Nothing, there's just one screen which is hiding him from Swami's vision. And I'm looking at him and I'm saying, brother, get down and go. Because I know my scene's duration. It's only some 2.5 minutes. So when I go out, that thing is going to open, right? And when I exit out, this whole curtain is supposed to open, backdrop is supposed to open, and the Ramar Pattabhishekam backdrop is supposed to be there. I'm telling him, brother, get down, come. He's sitting on a ladder, okay, and he's sticking. And he's saying, no, don't worry. I said, you don't understand. The scene is 2.5 minutes. 2.5 minutes, it will take you that much time to get down, take your ladder and escape. And he said, no, don't worry, brother, carry on. So I can't tell you, when I entered the stage, I'm not looking at Swami, I'm not thinking of my dialogues. I'm worried that my scene is going to end, the curtain is going to open, and this boy is going to be seen there next to Rama sitting those stickers. And that's the only, and I'm dreading that scene. My goodness, it's going to flop. The last scene, everything has come together till now. The last scene is going to open, Rama sitting on his throne, Pattabhishekam is going to happen, and Avinash is sitting there sticking stickers. He managed to come out with after I exited, as my curtain was drawn out, he walked behind the curtain and came nick of time. The best part of it is, the last scene ended without any hiccups. Avinash didn't make a cameo appearance on the scene. And Swami was very happy. Swami spoke to us. Swami gave us photographs. Swami took Aarti. Swami's car was leaving Kulwant Hall. It hadn't yet left Kulwant Hall. It was still climbing the slope near his residence. The whole backdrop fell. So, we really understand at such moments what was holding up the whole drama, the whole production. Just his will that it should happen. And why I say that it is such a life-changing experience is because today, when I coordinate events at the mandir, it's very, very common to see such last-minute chaos and panic. And one of our professors used to tell me that if everything is going right, Swami hasn't yet stepped in. When things start to take a twist, Swami's presence is there, right? Because it is not like Swami to not use the opportunity to give you a lesson. So it makes a big difference when you have gone through it yourself, and when you take strength from that, the faith that you have that this is happening because Swami wants it to happen, it makes a massive difference in how we handle situations. Of course, Swami is still not done testing, because it happens every year. Almost every year, there is some scenario, some situation. It could be very bizarre. One file will get corrupted and all the dialogues will vanish. But you don't panic. that's when you realize, okay, now Swami wants us to record the dialogues again. There is something in store for us. Maybe the dialogues have to come out better the second time around. You just take it in your stride, but it becomes so critical that you have such an experience to, look back, reflect, and respond to. So I think the gift of faith is so important. And that's why I said you don't know when you received it, and you don't know what you did to receive it, and you don't know its value when you get it. But you realize its value only when you look back and you reflect at such critical moments. And in my own journey with Swami, the different moments at which this gift of faith kept coming is the many desires that I had in terms of physical proximity to Swami. Every one of them he answered, and he continues to answer. Every one of them. I've had the most outrageous desires. Means when and very often it is because my brother studied 2 years before I joined. So anytime he got a chance, for me it was always, oh, okay, when I become a student, I want this also. So he had a photo with Swami. I said, Swami, I should have at least about 60, 70 photos with you. And I got more than that. Right? And I said, the first time I had an opportunity to sing in his presence, when I started my journey as a bhajan singer, it was to sing once in front of him. And when I sang the first time, the moment I finished, I said, no, this is not enough. Because at that point, one was enough. But when you have tasted it, you know it is not enough. And I've heard these. So before I joined as a student, I used to listen to these mandir bhajans, mandir programs, kavalis. So I have just and I'm being frank and sharing this as a Sai family. I said, Swami, this kavali, no, I want to sing in front of you. This kavali. I don't want to sing anything else. This one. And it's happened. And at that point of time, not being a student, not being a singer, it is much more than imaginative thinking. It's not even the best fictional writers can write that kind of a scenario, and only he can make it happen in such a magical way. You don't realize that it has happened, and then when you say, how on earth did it happen? But then when it happens and then you realize it is your desire that got fulfilled, you get the faith that he's listening. And that's why Swami has said, I give you whatever you want until you ask me what I have come to give. What is it that he has really come to give? It's something much more than rings and chances and songs, etc., isn't it? But till then, he says he will keep answering whatever you ask, till we ask what it is that he's come to give. So that is the faith that he has in us, and our faith gets renewed every time a little desire is answered by him. I'll move ahead to the next gift, the second gift, the gift of talent. Now, each and every one of us has an opportunity to try and connect to him within, and that is linked to the talent that we have, and that talent is customized for each of us. And mine, as Brother Jayshankar mentioned, is singing, and is being a part of the dramatics, the dramas that are performed in the Divine Presence. And again, this talent, even more so, this gift, even more so than the other gifts, I don't know what I have done to receive it. Neither of my parents are musical. They have a good sense of music, but they're not talented in music. My grandmother sings, but that's about it. It's a stray chance. My brother doesn't sing, so it is definitely divinely ordained that my grandmother's genes should pass on to me and not to him, if we were to speak genetics. So in terms of talent, I don't know what I have done to receive this gift of being able to sing, this gift of being able to speak, the gift of the gab, as it is said, or my skills at histrionics, at dramatics. And it is through these talents, and I see this talent that I have as the prism through which I have learned humility, because of which I have love for God, And I have seen the impact that it has on others. I say this because I have crossed from this side as being somebody who was just sitting somewhere in the last row of Kulwant Hall, to have crossed over to the other side to sit with the students, to sit with the bhajan group, and have the opportunity and the blessing of leading bhajans at the mandir for these many years. But I never miss recalling the tough days on the other side. And because I recall that, because it reminds me of the progress that I have made and serves as a constant reminder of the blessing that he has conferred on me. For instance, Brother Jaishankar mentioned my early days at the Sundaram Bhajan group. Now, when I was in my undergrad, suddenly, just as I was finishing school, out of the blue, I started singing. And I could only sing bhajans. Like, I just heard Swami's bhajans. I was introduced to Swami's bhajans only when I was in class 10, class 11. And I was hooked. And that's the only thing I wanted to do. I wanted to sing bhajans, and I wanted to attend bhajans, because in every bhajan session I was hearing new bhajans. Everything was new for me. So there are weeks on end where I have attended more than 9, 10 bhajans in a particular week. In anybody's house, there's bhajan in the area, I'll go and sit. Apart from the Samiti bhajans. Because it was so new, and because it was new, I was so eager to take in as much as I could, because I realized I was cashing in on something very late. I've arrived very late to this phenomenon of Sai bhajans, so I wanted to make up for all the lost time. And in very bizarre circumstances, I was asked to go to a different samiti, and within a month of me joining that samiti, I was told that the youth of that particular samiti are going to put up a program in Sundaram for Ugadi. This is Ugadi of 2004. And so they said, you sing Patti style, because for Sundaram, I didn't have a background of Sundaram bhajans. I've not grown up listening to Sundaram bhajans. I'd only heard Patti bhajans. They said, you sing one of the Kavalis. So they gave me a Kavali to practice with 2 other brothers. So the 3 of us were singing a Kavali, and we did a 45-minute program in Sundaram for Ugadi. Now, that year's Tamil New Year's Day, they wanted to pick from these bunch of youth a couple of people who will join. Some songs from this program will be taken with the Sundaram Bhajan group to Whitefield for the Tamil New Year's Day program. So one more time we were asked to repeat the same program, so that they could pick which programs they wanted, which singers they wanted. And I say miraculous because the Kavali was selected, but the other 2 singers were not. I was the only singer who was picked. 2 other singers were picked, and I was told to join with them for the Kavali. So it was a whole different team, but the song got picked and I got picked. And literally from 3 months ago, I didn't have the slightest clue of, I was just attending bhajans in my samiti. 3 months from then, I've shifted a samiti, I've selected in an audition, and in April, I'm singing in front of Swami. All of this just turned around, 180-degree turn I had in the span of 2.5 months, from nowhere. And it was a huge chance, right, for somebody to sing in front of Swami for the first time. And at that time, I was only telling Swami, I want to sing only once, just once. One time is enough. I won't ask again. But when I sat there in Whitefield and when I sang, and when he looked from the stage and he looked into my eyes, I said, no way, this is not enough. There can be nothing else more worthwhile to do in life than to sit in front of you and sing. And so eventually, imagine I am singing with the Sundaram Bhajan group, but I'm not a Bhajan group member. I was one of those, external forces, like you in IPL, how they have these foreign players concept, like that we were taken in. And so after that, it was an automatic entry into the Bhajan group. You join. Okay, you've sung in front of Swami with the Bhajan group, you can join the Bhajan group. Now, the convener at that time, there was a changeover in the convener of the Bhajan group. The new convener had no idea about me. Okay, and I had no idea about the Bhajan group myself. So I would just go and sit. Thursday, Sunday, sit. They would call for any seva, Swami's residence cleaning or any other seva. I would go attend, go for the practice sessions on Saturday. But all of those things had a big impact in terms of uh, today the discipline that I have for myself as I look at myself. I think it came from being a part of Sundaram Bhajan group in my formative years. Whereas you go not less than half an hour or 20 minutes before the bhajan session. You don't miss practice sessions on weekends or non-bhajan days when there's practice. You don't miss that practice session. And those kind of, and always stepping up for any other seva opportunity. It's not that bhajan singers are restricted to only coming and singing bhajans. If there's any other seva opportunity, you don't say, no, I'll only come for bhajans. So those are the things that I think I learned very early when I was in Sundaram. And I remember months passed. So I joined in April. At least till September, nobody asked me what I do. Nobody knew me and nobody asked me, what is it that you do? Do you play kanjira? Do you play tabla? Do you sing harmonium? Nothing. I just used to come, sit in the back, get up and go. They wouldn't ask anything. I would also go back home. So one Thursday, I had gone very early. We finished the altar decoration and all of that. And I was sitting in the practice room and I was singing. The harmonium was there. I was just singing to myself. And I was alone. After some time, this convener had walked in. He heard, and then he waited for me to finish. And then he looked at me and said, "Innappa nee paaduviya?" He said, "You sing?" So I said, "Sir, you didn't know?" "No, nobody told me," he said. So I said, "Sir, for 6 months I've been sitting here, sir. You didn't realize?" "No, I didn't know. I thought you were just coming for bhajans." So it took me 6 months to get a first chance to sing in Sundaram. Till then I was just there, like the clock on the wall or the bunting on the side. I was one more addition to the Sundaram hall. In the following year, Sundaram Bhajan group came to Parthi with the music program, hoping to get a chance in Swami's presence. With no occasion. And so they asked who all want to come for the program. One of the first hands to go up. But I was never counted for singing in the program. I would come for every practice session. I would sit. Everybody would select. I mean, the senior singers would pick their songs and they would practice. I would just sit back, play talam, play whatever. When we came to Patti, my job was to carry the harmonium from the shed to Mandir and back. And it was a massive triple reed harmonium. Sundaram harmonium is one of the biggest that I have seen. And it just have to carry it from the shed to Mandir every day because you don't know which day Swami is going to ask you. Carry it and carry it back. So I felt very pained. What is this Swami? I'm coming all the way just to lift the harmonium. Nobody is even asking if I would like to sing. But when I look back, today when I look back and reflect, it was very obvious what they did because I was a 19, 20-year-old fellow I was not exceptionally gifted in terms of being able to give a solo song in front of Swami by no stretch of imagination. But the desire was there. But desire isn't enough. The talent also has to be harnessed at different levels, isn't it? So that's all I did. If you're expecting that something else transpired in that trip, no. I lifted harmonium from Mandir to sheds and back. But today, when I look back, I think those are the trips where Swami kind of was constantly egging me on to yearn more for it. That yearning is what sustains us. Because if the yearning stops, then what motivates us? Why would you want to go back for a bhajan session if you think I've sung enough? That the moment you take that tone, unless you have transcended it, you say, no, or you have become old and you say, no, now is the time for me to step back, let the youngsters take over. It's not that either. But somewhere we need to realize that the yearning is what keeps us going. And so these early days, I think, like I said, when I look back today, when I've come to decide to join the Prashanti Bhajan group and get an opportunity to sing almost every day, I cherish going for bhajans because and especially carrying the harmonium today from inside the bhajan hall to where we sit for bhajans. When I carry it, I cannot but remember those days when I only did only that, right? So, and similarly, at the same time, as I joined the bhajan group, I had also had the opportunity to professionally do a little bit of dabble a little bit in theatrics in Chennai. So I got a couple of opportunities to be a part of some theater groups, very reputed theater groups, and I was blessed to learn from some of the finest theater personalities in Chennai. There was one Miss Gauri, there was one P.C. Ramakrishna sir. We've all heard his baritone voice. These are the people whom I got an opportunity to spend some time with, and all of that I didn't know that, in hindsight when I look back, all of these were gifts that Swami was giving me for me to be able to use it at some point of time towards as an offering to him. So I think that the talent that we have, which as a gift of God, in fact, Swami says talent itself is God, and not taking it for granted and realizing that we have a talent, the gift of talent, and using it towards the end of offering whatever we can, the best of what we can for Him. And that's something that I would like to fondly recall here at this point of time. And yes, in terms of bhajan singing, just by the sheer what do I say, love that he had for me, by giving me the number of chances that he has given me, he has helped me to improve. And by the very fact that he has put me on this road, the royal highway to God. Swami says Nama Sankirtana is the royal highway to God. With no effort of my own, he just showed me the highway and said, this is the road, take it. So I have to walk on this road until I reach, but I can tell you that it has been the best, the most scenic road that one can travel. And thanks to being associated with the Prashanti Bhajan group, I've had the opportunity to travel to different parts of India. I've had the opportunity to travel to a few places in the world, and I've seen the impact that bhajans have on people, the thirst that they have for bhajans. And that's why I said it's the prism of learning humility. It's the prism through which I can see the kind of talent that exists outside. If I were to uh, kind of put myself on a scale versus the other people, the kind of people that I meet with the talent that they have, I realize how humble I should be, because they have so much at their disposal in terms of talent, the kind of skill sets that they have with music, and yet what they thirst and what they pine for the most are these few opportunities which I seem to have quite easily accessible, and which are accessible to me. The love for Swami itself, I see it in the seva organizations and the bhajan workshops. When we go for bhajan workshops, the kind of eagerness that people have to want to know what Swami has said about bhajans. How can we improve the bhajans that we sing? So I think this is a very, very gifted prism that Swami has given me to look through and see the whole world in a very different light. And Swami himself sings, भजन से मन को सजल बनाकर भक्ति मार्ग सिखला दिया, साई भजन से भव सागर को तारण भी सिखला दिया, पतितो धारी प्रतिविहारी साई मुरारी नारायण. So he's given us this gift of Sai bhajans that we sing over and over again, and we don't realize how it is cleansing our soul, how it's cleansing us from within. And this is the royal highway to God that he has gifted us so beautifully. The third gift that I shall quickly run through, because I think I didn't realize that it would already be 7:30. The third gift is the gift of transformation. Now, transformation, the word itself obviously has a physiological meaning. The change, which we know is the only constant. When you talk about physiological transformation, we grow. Rather, we outgrow our clothes. And sometimes we outgrow our ideas, etc. But in the spiritual sense, it has a very different meaning. What is transformation? It isn't becoming something that you were or that you are not. It's not about becoming something that you are not. It's just becoming a better version of your own self. It's not the jump, to use a very contemporary example, it's not the jump from iOS 7 to iOS 13. It is iOS 13 to iOS 13.1.2 to 13.2.3. It's just the better version of your own self and not becoming something completely different. We all try our hands with New Year resolutions, isn't it? That is us wanting to do something which we haven't done enough. We feel that we've not done enough of something, and therefore we want to start doing more of that this year and so on. But in the cusp between the two types of transformations lies the idea that we change only to never go back again. A New Year resolution is something that's so easy to break. In fact, it is the first thing that we break in the New Year. But the transformation in the spiritual sense is the change that is so permanent that we cannot go back to what we were previously. Swami's example, it's a very beautiful analogy that Swami gives. He says, is the example of a child clad in knickers. The child is allowed to roam around at home just wearing his underwear, right? You put on a t-shirt and an underwear and the child is roaming around the house. But Swami says you can't do the same when you're an adult. It's the same you, responding to the same name, but at 20 years of age, if you do the same thing, it is not accepted. But it looks so cute when you do it when you are 2 or 3 years old. Around your house, just your underwear. So Swami says that it's the same, the person is the same, yet it isn't accepted. Some things happen and are accepted at a point of time, but not with the passage of time. So when we have grown or when we have transformed, it is assumed that we don't slip back. We don't go back to doing things that we were doing or thinking prior to our transformation. And in the context of spirituality, Swami gives an example that like how you have milestones on a road journey to indicate the closeness to the destination. The milestones give us an indication of how close we are to our destination when we are traveling. On the spiritual journey, Swami says the first milestones that you will cross are love, patience. These are the first two milestones that you need to cross if you are going in the right direction. So if you are not seeing yourself being more patient or more loving, you have to give yourself a rethink if you are on the right road itself. And this transformation, that the gift of transformation that Swami blesses us with, is a slow but a sure journey. In fact, Swami says, I will cure you slowly and patiently. And this is very important because the second line Swami says in his discourse, the slower I do it, the more lasting it will be. So when we talk about our own transformations, for Swami, the progress in this lifetime doesn't matter to him because he's seeing us from a point of view of many lifetimes. But how many lifetimes do we want to come back to finish the transformation is something that we have to work on, that we can probably influence. In fact, in terms of this change, Swami says, if an object needs to acquire higher value, it needs to undergo change. The example that he gives in his discourse is that of paddy. It needs to undergo change if it has to acquire higher value. Just harvested off the field, it doesn't have the same value as it is after it is thrashed and after the husk is removed and it finally lands being packed as a bag of rice. Or the example of gold, Swami says. It needs to get beaten. It needs to get refined for it to acquire a higher value when it is sold as a beautiful ornate piece of jewelry. In this context, I'm suddenly remembering a story that one of our professors had told us. So this happened in Vrindavan. Excuse me. This happened in Vrindavan when one lady had come for darshan. And even as she was approaching Vrindavan for the ashram for darshan, a thought crosses her mind when she's outside the gate. How about I take something and try to get it blessed during darshan? It will be a nice souvenir to take back home. And we would all remember the shops that would be there, the right outside the ashram. So her eyes fall on a small brass statue of Lord Krishna. So she's immediately taken by it, and she buys that. She buys a plate, she buys a cloth, and she keeps it inside. She covers the idol, and she goes and sits for darshan. And as she's waiting for darshan, a thought crosses her mind. She just peeps under the cloth once, and she sees the brass. And she's very happy with the features, and the fact that it'll be nice if I could go back and keep it in my altar. And then a thought crosses her mind. She wonders to herself, if only my husband was in a better job, if only we were in a better position in life, I need not have bought a brass or a bronze idol. I could have bought a gold one. That would be really nice. She thinks to herself. And then Swami comes for darshan. She's got a vantage point where she's able to hold up her idol for blessing. Swami comes by. Swami looks at her plate. Swami sees the idol. Swami picks it up and Swami walks away. Swami walks away from her with the idol in his hand. And immediately from blessing, it's you move emotions very quickly, and suddenly you're like, Swami, I want it back. Please, what are you doing? Right? No more one thinking that you're not happy that he has taken something from you. And she's getting desperate. Swami is walking away, and Swami stops, turns back, he tosses it, and it lands on her lap. And Swami gives his trademark mischievous smile, saying, I was just playing with you. She's so happy and she's so thrilled seeing Swami. She's lost in joy. And Swami has continued to. She looks down and she picks it up. Now it's a gold idol. It's no more the brass idol. It is a gold idol. Exactly what she had desired a few moments ago. What is the miracle here? Converting the brass to gold by just touch of his hand. That's because the world is the value that world is attaching to gold, isn't it? The true miracle is the transformation of the devotee. How he caught her heart, the gift of faith that he gave her. The reaffirmation for her that, you know what, anything you need, I can give you. And you know what? Whatever you think, I'm listening. He is continuously working on each of us for our own refinement and our own spiritual growth. He chisels away every bit of the unnecessary parts of us, patiently chipping away until we become the masterpiece of his creation that we are. Like I said at the beginning, these are 3 of the many gifts that Swami has given me, but 3 of the most valuable gifts that I consider to be blessed with. And like I said earlier, we all have received these gifts and many more. And we continue to benefit by being under his watchful gaze. I'm sure if you roll back the pages, your diaries, your notes, your memories, I'm sure you can reflect on instances of the gift of faith, the gift of talent, and the gift of transformation that Swami has been blessing us with. With that, I shall conclude my talk. Thank you so much for this opportunity, because every opportunity to address is an opportunity to sit back and reflect. And nothing helps in our progress as much as a few moments of reflection does. Thank you, Sai Ram.
Sai Ram, brother. Indeed, when you were sharing these thoughts, as students, all of us have experienced it in one form or the other. The chaos that you have mentioned, as students, all of us have experienced it. Be it sitting in the bhajan hall, be it acting in dramas, or doing anything in front of Swami. This chaos is prevalent, but yet it's so beautiful. You enjoy. At the moment, you go through a lot of tension, but then when you're sharing his thoughts right now, it's all fun and you're laughing about it. It's beautiful. There are several questions that are coming through. Has it, as part of the bhajan group, we have experienced it so many times. Have you experienced any situation where you're sitting for a bhajan and Swami has put you in a spot, maybe told you sing next, you're unprepared or something like that? Has it ever happened?
I was never in that kind of a spotlight, brother. I was one of those fellows who used to sing once a week. I would get my chance once a week if Swami sat till the seventh bhajan. So if he got up earlier, you have to come back the next week. So it was a very long wait for me. Literally lived my life from Tuesday to Tuesday. It didn't matter what the rest of the days were like. For me, it was only about what happened on Tuesdays. Because I would get my chance to sing only on Tuesdays.
As you say Tuesday, I mean, my mind goes back to my student days where I used to play harmoniums on Friday. And there was a time when for 2 months, I never got my chance because on every Friday, there would either be a musical program or there would be Swami's discourse and some festival. So, and there were 8 harmonium players. We used to have 7. And on Sunday morning, and I went 2 months without playing harmonium, and I was ever wondering that would I ever get that chance again? And finally, I did get that chance. When you told that incident where you used to carry harmonium, we can understand that pain because we go through it, carrying the harmonium from shed to mandir, 25 kgs, and then carrying it all the way to and fro. It's no easy task, but yes, that's a kind of sadhana that Swami puts you through. We experience it during Ashadi. We have programs in the shed. Then you get the harmonium to mandir, but then it's Swami's blessing. We yearn for it, and Swami blesses all of us in different ways. So, what was the first bhajan that you sang in Mandir?
Sadly, no, we don't relish it when we are in the act. It's more of the physical pain, that discomfort that dominates our train of thought. What is this? Why is it so heavy? How much more distance to go? Right? Those are the things that bother us at that moment. But definitely, when we look back, we enjoy it. That's why I said reflection is so important, because when we look back, you only have a smile on your face, and that's another gift. To be able to laugh at your difficulties is also a gift that you have to be blessed with.
What was the first bhajan that you sang in Mandir?
I sang Hey Sai Jagannatha. That
So,
was my first bhajan.
So you got a lot
of bhajans are all
so that you got a lot of time with Swami. That's a big bhajan. I'm sure if you sing a line twice, you at least get 4 minutes of Swami to yourself when you sing that bhajan solo.
Yeah. Yes.
That was beautiful. Okay.
It's just striking me as you're asking. I would very meticulously write in my diary whenever I sang a bhajan, what time I started it and what was the shruti and what was Swami's reaction. All of it I used to write for every bhajan that I have sung in my student days. So my 50th bhajan in Swami's presence was exactly 1 year after when I finished my first year of MBA. Finished first year, went for industrial visit, and came back to get those extra chances because you continue to be in the summer vacation. There are fewer people here. So after 2 days of coming back, I think April 6th or 7th was my 50th bhajan. It took me 1 year, right? And today, you sing 50 bhajans in a month, at least 50 bhajans in a month. If I go for morning bhajans also, then much more. Right? That's just how he has flooded us with chances.
So do you actually keep a count of bhajans that you have sung in Mandir? Or are you past that count?
I counted till I was a student, to be honest. Till I was a student, I counted. Because again, one of those crazy desires that I told you about, it was one of those desires was, I'm sharing this for the first time. There used to be the chapel stand at Sundaram. And when I used to go multiple times, I have this OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, where my chapel will be the same spot, the exact same slot. It will be very difficult to place it. Every time you have to go back, you forget where you have left it, right? So you like to find one slot and keep it there. That number was some 476 or something. So there are days when I used to tell Swami, these many bhajans I should sing in front of you. This is the number of bhajans that I should sing in your presence, in your physical presence. I crossed that number years ago, yeah. But at that time, when you haven't yet joined the institute, 476 is like no chance. You even in your wildest dreams, unless you sit for Akhanda Bhajan and you sit for 24 hours and sing and you count that, yes, then maybe. But I did. That's why I said, no, there are some things I can't share on a public forum. Those kind of, because you can't believe that you asked for this, but we did. We away with it also, right? So yeah, so in my student days, I easily crossed that number.
So, everyone has a way of connecting with Swami. Some people sit and pray, some people sing. What is that one bhajan that comes to your mind when you feel down and out and then you want to connect with Swami? Is there some particular bhajan that is there and you want to really sing your heart out?
For me, it's more of listening to bhajans than singing. Listening to my most favorite bhajan gives me the connect rather than, because I'm not a fan of my own voice. So I don't like to sing for myself. But and following that particular bhajan, that gives me a lot of peace. Listening to it in my favorite bhajan and then listening to it and singing along with it gives me
So, which is a
my.
favorite? So, which is a favorite bhajan?
If I answer that question, will you ask me to sing it?
Of course.
Depends on that. I just gave you the. I
See,
just told you that I am not a fan of my own
you can
voice.
see
So
all the faces who are there on screen and you can see their eagerness. We have to listen to you.
I see only your face, brother.
No, Siddharth has just given a thumbs up. Your namesake has given a thumbs up. Please, we
Okay.
have to listen to
This
you.
is one of my favorite bhajans. Yeah. Sai Madhava Madana Gopala Sai Madhava Madana Gopala Nanda Mukunda Natavarala Nanda Mukunda Natavarala Sai Madhava Madana Gopala Mathura Natha Dina Dayala Mathura Natha Dina Dayala Sai Govinda Giridhara Sai Govinda Giridhara Sai Madhava Madana Gopala.
It is absolutely beautiful.
Yes, it's a
Just
beautiful bhajan indeed.
beautiful bhajan, beautifully sung. Okay, there's a question that's come through. Uh, it's been observed that when people sit for physical bhajans, the connect with Swami is there. They're able to visualize Swami. But during these times, we have to adapt. So we've adapted to online bhajans. A lot of us do online bhajans, but many times that connect is missing. How do we ensure that we experience Swami even when we sing during our online bhajans?
When you say the connect is missing, firstly, I hope you have good internet. That could be a reason why the connect is is not good. But jokes apart, I think it's just being consciously looking inward. If you close your eyes and if you can remember one or two of those moments where you have sat for darshan or where Swami has spoken to you, you had an opportunity to give a letter, or if you look at a photo of Bhagwan, visualization, we have spoken about that in our bhajan workshops. So the visualization technique, I think, is the way forward, because if you have, and I'm sure you have at least, uh, listened to some of our bhajan workshops, there's that one experience where Swami told one of our teachers that he was imagining Swami when, when bhajans were going on, and he was closing his eyes and thinking of Swami standing and swaying for bhajans, and the breeze just caressing his hair. And he opens his eyes, and Swami is there in front of him in that exact same pose. And then Swami looks at him, and Swami says, "Andar ka Swami, bahar ka Swami ek hi hai." So if we can find and hold on to that form within, if we can catch hold of that form of Swami that's there inside us, he is there. There's no doubt about it. Yes, the connect is difficult to make, but we just have to reflect when it was Bahar Ka Swami also, getting him was not easy. Whether it was coming and standing in line, you have to get the right token, you have to come and sit in front. He still has to come your way. He still has to look at you after coming your way. He has to acknowledge you after looking at you when he comes your way. So it has never been easy. So when you go within, I suppose it's just recalling your memories. And these days, I think, especially a bhajan a day, the lovely darshan videos that and some unseen footage that they come up with every now and then, I think that's the easiest, isn't it? You just have to focus on Swami. You can forget who's singing, you can forget what the bhajan was. Because there are days when I have seen the bhajan, but I don't recall what bhajan was that day's bhajan, but I only recall the darshan video of that day. That day's darshan video of Swami walking down, he just comes up to the lady's side, takes a few letters, the bhajan is over by then, right? But it doesn't matter because you have been having that single-minded focus on him. So I think the easiest way is to have a darshan video running. If you're not able to go within, at least till then you can look outside. But ideally, the best is to just shut your eyes and look inside and find him inside.
Absolutely perfect.
Then it doesn't matter whether it is online bhajan or offline bhajan or in person or any of that. Because if you do it now, when you get back to offline bhajans, you'll be very much at peace. In fact, I should say that there was a period when I was at home, when I couldn't attend bhajans during the lockdown, a good 22 days when I wasn't able to go for bhajans. And so it was very difficult to not be able to go for bhajans, because you have the pass, you have the access to go to mandir, and you have to be at home. So I found for a brief while, sadly, I found my inner prashanti. I was able to sit at home, listen to bhajans on Radio Sai, close my eyes, play the harmonium alongside mandir bhajans. But when I shut my eyes, I was able to feel that I was sitting exactly where I would sit if I was physically in mandir. Happened very briefly. That's all. It just happened. Maybe it was Swami's way of giving me that connect so that I don't miss mandir too much when I was supposed to stay at home. But I think it is possible. At least that is what I have learned in the last 1 year. That it is possible. There is hope for me. It is there inside me. The capability to find the inner prashanti is there in me. I have learned that I can, because I wasn't sure if I would ever reach there. I was always thinking that I would need my Prashanti Nilayam physically. I still need it. There's no doubt about it. But when you're not at bhajans, if you can still find your inner prashanti, then you're reaching somewhere, isn't it? Then that's the next step. It's not that only during bhajans you find your connect. We need to stay connected all the time.
Absolutely perfectly said. There is one song which Swami used to love a lot, O Nestama. I mean, how many times have you heard that song? And we've heard, Swami get emotional. And people don't know the meaning of that song, but yet people connect with Swami in that beautiful way. You've seen it yourself. You've seen it in Kodai. You've seen it at Prashanti Nilayam. What are your thoughts on that song, and can we listen to that song? I mean, that's one song. Most people don't know the meaning. It's in Telugu. But the moment you sing, there is something that touches your heart. And Swami used to love the song right from the beginning. That song was sent to Swami so that he could come from Vrindavan to Parthi. That was the genesis of that song. Yes. And you've sung it so many times, and Swami gets emotional when that song was sung. So, any experience about that song, or would you like to sing that song for us?
You said many people don't know the meaning of the song. I'm somebody who probably knows the meaning, but I don't know the lyrics of the song. So I don't think I can sing it, because lest I should expose my ignorance to the larger community. But the song itself, yes, I think it's just the alap itself, that one chord, yeah, that when you say it strikes a chord, the chord strikes a chord. So I can attempt the alap because I'm very confident of the lyrics of the alap. So నేస్తమా ప్రియమైన బంధమా ప్రేమకు రూపమా మాందరి ప్రాణమా ఓ నేస్తమా
Absolutely beautiful. I mean,
It's a very haunting tune.
if
That,
this
that
bhajan,
first
if
line,
this
no, it
song,
just hits you.
if this song doesn't give goosebumps, then I don't think anything else will. I mean, all of the students when we hear this song, I think naturally as students, the only thing we do is we close our eyes, visualize Swami, and I mean, it's actually wrong to even speak after this bhajan. The silence that is there after this, or we have seen it many times when Ravi sir sings. We don't feel like clapping. We don't feel like telling wow. We just feel like being in that silence right after bhajans. That is a moment that we all wait for, and
Wouldn't we close and leave it in that silence?
absolutely. I mean, it's that one bhajan where you don't try to make a mistake. You try to
Yeah,
keep quiet and you
yeah,
try to listen to it, right?
yeah, yeah.
This song just gave us that feeling right now. Absolutely beautiful.
Okay,
Any,
okay.
we're getting more questions actually. I mean, we can't let you off easily.
I thought you just said the silence and the
Yeah, yeah.
haunting
So,
and
yeah. So, you've been to Kodaikanal with Swami. Any Kodai experience that you would want to share with you or with anyone else? That's fine.
so many, brother. I mean, we can
Anyone?
start from
No.
scratch. We can
Yeah. So, yeah. While
start
I
a
can say
session
we
from
have all
scratch.
evening. Yeah, we have all evening. But yeah, one experience.
One, no?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll come back to. I'll at least connect it to my talk in some way. I spoke about my bizarre desires, isn't it? So, in my time as a student, uh, I joined very late. Late in the sense, for by the standards of my times, yeah, I joined only in 2006. So today, when I look back, I joined 2006. You don't realize that so many years have passed. But I joined in 2006, and in my time, Swami somewhere end of 2007. Yeah, I think end of 2007, November or December 2007, Swami stopped walking from the car to the interview room and from the interview room to the bhajan hall. He got very comfortable in just sitting in the chair. So the form boys of my era as a student were those who were pushing Swami's chair. Those would be there to receive Swami when he reached for darshan and take his chair from the car to the interview room, from the interview room to the bhajan hall, and so on. So I didn't aspire to be one of them. Not I was a little realistic with my goals as well, but I always had that fascination. I should one day do that for you. Should be able to push your chair. So, like I said, no, when today I wasted my time asking for such things, but then even in that asking, I think it was the yearning that kept working on me. So it is immaterial what I asked, but the intensity with which I was asking is what I supposed I learned the most. So in Kodai, our trip was for about 11 days. So on the last day, as is the usual norm in Kodai, we would get a photo with Swami in the terrace, the balcony of Kodaikanal. So for those who are not aware, when Swami comes out of his room, there was a hall, and then there was a door straight to Swami's door. There was another door. In that room, we would keep all our bedding, and that door had another door. Again, all three doors are in a straight line, and that door opened to the terrace. So we didn't know how exactly we were going to ask Swami, or if Swami would be in a mood to straight away grant. So the typical finding your way around the fix, we sat such that we created a straight path to that door. So that when Swami comes out, the message is loud and clear. Swami, that's where we want to go. We want to go to the terrace for photos. And because Swami was using the chair, there was a slight height difference between the terrace area, the balcony area, and the flooring of the room, the inner room, about this much distance. So there was no ramp. It was not a place that they had thought of Swami would go, and so they had not put a ramp. So we very quickly thought, let's make a makeshift ramp. So we put our beddings and our pillows and things like that in a gradual slope, like 3 beds there, and then 3 beds, and then 2 beds, 1 bed, almost as if that would make up for the height that Swami had to achieve to get onto the terrace. Swami came out. Of course, Swami, being the loving Lord that he is, he understood very quickly what we were getting at. He said, "Ah, okay, Potamu," he said. I was closest to the terrace door. And Swami came. What we didn't account for was that the mattress would sink if there was weight on it. So when Swami reached the closer to the threshold at the terrace, his wheelchair was still down. And that's it. All the mattresses we had already placed, and Swami's chair was nowhere close. So the brother who was behind Swami looked at me, and I realized, and I looked up, wondering, okay, what to do now? So quickly I got up, I went to the terrace, and I just said, Swami, I will lift. And Swami nodded. So I put my hand near his knees, I picked up the chair and brought it out. And he lifted from behind, and I was the one who was in front, and I lifted him with the chair and brought him in, placed his front wheel on the terrace, and then they were able to move Swami. So for me, it was, and as soon as I picked him, I realized what was happening. I was like, oh my God, this is that one moment that I had wanted. So even when he answers, he answers again in his own, like I said, tremendous, mysterious, fascinating. It is fascinating because he gives what you ask, but he gives it even better than you could have ever imagined. From wanting to push Swami's chair, I got to lift Swami's chair with Swami in it and place him on the terrace. And of course, the whole scenario was so beautifully built for that. A situation emerged where I was at the right place, and that the mattresses were insufficient, and that his chair was not in a position to move out. So that is one of my most fondest Kodai memories that I can say in a short time.
Now, isn't that beautiful? All of us have experienced that little moment with Swami, that 5 seconds that you get with Swami, one-to-one, during a darshan when he looks at you. It is that personal moment. And it's such a beautiful and a lasting moment that it stays with you throughout your life. You close your eyes and that moment comes back again. There's another request that I have. There's a Tamil song. We've heard you sing this before. You sung it in multiple bhajan workshops. It's a beautiful song where the Lord is referred to as Mother. Uirum niye, urum niye. It's a beautiful song. We have sung it as part of our gratitude program to Swami in 2002.
Okay.
I mean, nothing like having Swami sitting in front of us and singing this song, calling out to Swami as your mother. We've heard you sing that song as well. If you would remember the lyrics, it would be an absolute pleasure to. It's perfectly fine.
I'll sing any I'll sing any bhajan, brother. Suddenly you tell me songs, I
Okay.
really can't recall the lyrics.
Oh, okay. No, no
I don't want
problem.
to waste time trying to find the lyrics. That's all.
No problem. No problem, Siddharth. Any bhajan that's really endearing to you.
Okay.
The idea was never to put you in a spot, but you know,
Incidentally, it happens, isn't it?
yeah, we conduct bhajan auditions in Mumbai and we ask singers to sing in different pitches. So this is something of an audition for you, I guess.
Again, I'm going to go back to another bhajan in Bageshri. दया करो हे करुणा निधान साई दया करो हे करुणा निधान साई तुम हो दाता दया करो तुम हो साई कृपा करो प्रभु तुम साई अंतर्यामी प्रभु तुम साई अंतर्यामी पतिपुरी भगवान पतिपुरी भगवान तुम हो साई कृपा करो दया करो हे करुणा निधान
It was absolutely beautiful. I wanted to ask you to sing this bhajan. I've heard you sing this before and it's absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much for singing it for us. Uh, as reluctant as I am, we have to let you go. Time's calling. Uh, and our humble pranams to all you wonderful singers and Prashanti Bhajan group that have been doing bhajans day in and day out. Uh, Sitting back at home, we receive the bhajans, and it sounds like there is a whole orchestra performing there. We know the reality where there are, due to this corona restrictions, you have five singers, maybe you have three singers, you have one harmonium player, you have a tabla player. It goes live throughout the world, and it's absolutely flawless. It's an amazing seva that you do day in and day out, morning, evening. Prashanti bhajans are the gold standard for the world. The tune that is sung there is replicated across the world. It's absolutely brilliant, the seva that you have been doing, and our salutations to all of you, and may Swami continue to give you these blessings for many years. All the pandemic is still on. You have gone through the pandemic in a bad manner. You experienced it yourself, and all of you were raring to go back to mandir. The disease affects the body, the lungs, it reduces the capacity to sing. But Bhagwan has blessed you with so much of grace that He's given you that blessing. You've gone back to Mandir. All of you sing day in and day out. Our pranams to all of you from Mumbai and across the world. Our salutations to all of you. So thank you, Brother Siddharth, for sharing your thoughts with us today evening. And yeah, we'll be listening to you tomorrow morning when you go to Mandir and you sing bhajans. But uh, our gratitude for coming for this session and sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you so much. It was definitely a wonderfully well spent Sunday evening for me too. And I must say, and I must thank you because, and I really mean this when I say it, when you sit to prepare for a talk is when you realize how loving Swami has been in your life and how much he has had what sort of an impact he has had in my life. So I always look forward to speaking only for this selfish reason, because for that period leading up to the talk, for sure you want to stay in the zone, you want to find that zone, you want to think about him, and you want to be in tune. And that is a wonderful conscious effort to make, because after you're done with this, with the session, you start thinking about other things as well. You start going back into the humdrum of life. But truly it is worth your time well spent when you sit and reflect and you sit and think about all the wonderful things that he has done for us. And so many thoughts, so many moments come rushing to your mind. You realize, my God, what a time we have had with him, and what a time we continue to have with him. So thank you for that opportunity, because without that opportunity, it doesn't happen so naturally. So at least not yet for me. So therefore, I would definitely like to thank you for that.
Thank you once again, brother. We will end today's session with Samastaloka. Samastaloka Sukhino Bhavantu. Samastaloka Sukhino Bhavantu. Samastaloka Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. जय बोलो भगवान श्री सत्य साई बाबा जी की जय। साईं राम।